What is going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Hope everybody's doing well. Gonna get into this slate in a minute. Wanted to remind everybody we've been on fire, millions and millions of dollars in the year between the team and the subs, and I hope that you guys give us a look. I think we're one of the most unique offerings in the industry. Combined, having all of the SaberSim content, all of the at just a fraction more of the price, all of the pay dirt content, as well as all of Sheets' projections, Goldie's projections, all of my content, exact exposures. We got Brandon Cruz for NASCAR, Rhodey with his playbooks for baseball, football, etc. Adam Perry for hockey, for baseball. We got a lot of good stuff going on, and hopefully you guys will check it out. And we've got some trials out there that you can check out on the site. And if you wanted to join now, it's never going to be cheaper than it is right now. We are rebuilding the website, and everything's there where it is right now, but we're going to probably raise prices once the website's complete. So use code FINALS2025 for 33% off your first month. And we'll talk a little finals later today, along with baseball at 5:30 Eastern time. So having said all that, we're going to get into it with the early slate. I'm going to talk through what I'm doing. It's a little tricky because I'm looking at the weather in this Pittsburgh game, which obviously is important because Skubal is clearly the best option on the slate. And it looks like we're possibly looking at a late start. There could be a delay in the later half of the game. Maybe we use that to bump down Skubal's numbers a little bit. It's going to be hard not to get, somewhere near 75 or 100% of him, just because he stands out as being so much better than everyone else on this particular slate. So we'll figure it out. We'll go game by game here and just talk through and see if we can't figure out what we're going to do. These are all just based on early runs I did. I remind everybody what I like to do a lot of times on these slates is just use Goldie's or Sheets, depending on which one's loaded. Sheets is out this morning. So Goldie's projections for the pitching, and then I sometimes will raise it a little bit if I feel like it's a little too low, and basically keep using Goldie's as the baseline for the pitching exposures, and then letting SaberSim sort of run with the individual players' exposures. What I like to do on these is I am going to X out the 5-man stacks. You can see I did it down here at the bottom. I just think that there's so many other ways to get there, and the smaller the slates, 6 games or less, I feel like it's a good time to try and X out the 5-mans in the interest of getting a little bit different. All right. So with that said, we've got Rodon and Tyler Anderson. Now, I'm actually probably going to end up with more Rodon than this 2%. It's just where I was at after my last build when I tried this. And I just don't – I think it's, probably too much upside to have that little. And he's clearly the second best pitching option on the slate. He has struggled his last couple outings. The Yankees have kind of struggled in general lately. Kind of would actually be an understatement. They've really struggled. Their offense has been pretty lackluster, and they still have a 6.4 total today. It's great hitting weather in New York, 89 degrees with 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to left. So it's going to be hard to ignore the Yankees. To be honest with you, I think that getting a little bit of Angels exposure is probably not the worst idea in the world either. So let's take a quick look here where the hitters project, because I think they're going to be really popular, and really struggling is maybe not a great combination in general, but still going to be hard to ignore entirely. So I'm going to have some Yankees exposure. I also don't have to worry about a little bit of some of the chalk because I am not playing the 5-man stack, so I can get away with it that way. But this is sort of where I'm at right now, and you can see that I'm getting a decent amount of Yankees. And again, I'd rather use them as 3-mans or less, just because I think it's going to be so much parts of the chalk. But I'm okay with getting some of it as I'm crossing out the 5-mans. Excuse me. All right, so we move over to Washington and Colorado at Washington at 90 degrees in Washington, this crazy heat wave, and humid in all these places as well. We've got Trevor Williams and Chase Dollander. I'm curious to see the Colorado ownership because I think it's a little higher. Like I thought early on they might be sneaky, and maybe they are a little bit to some extent at the bottom of the order, especially. But it's still, you're not getting that sneaky. And obviously Washington is one of the more popular teams on the slate for good reason. I would like to, this Trevor Williams ownership I have is probably a little too exaggerated, but again, we don't have a ton of options to choose from. I am going to drop it down to Goldie's projection. I thought I did that already, but I guess I didn't. 13.2 seems like a reasonable number. And probably lower my Trevor Williams exposure just a little bit where I'm at right now. But yeah, it's hard. It's definitely interesting, and I'll point out some individual plays. Obviously, going back to the Yankee game, Judge, Trout, nothing revolutionary there. Taylor Ward, Zach Neto, Giancarlo Stanton, obviously all stand out for being good plays against lefties. And over here, it's pretty much the entire lineup of the Nationals, but particularly 1, 2, 3. You also have Brady House in there at third base at only 3K. So certainly very, very viable Nat stack, just going to be really popular. So you're going to have to try and do something else to get a little different. And the Colorado, as I mentioned, you get the further down you get in the order, that's the part that's going to be low owned. I think that's pretty reasonable for hand building. And I also think it's very, very reasonable to play them as a full stack. I just think that they'll be less owned than the Yankees in Washington. They're just going to be more owned than we're used to seeing Colorado on the road. All right, new lineups coming in. We'll adjust to that once we get there. All right, Pittsburgh and Detroit. This is the one with the weather, and this is unfortunately I'm getting 100% Scooble after my last run. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it because it's a tricky situation. I actually like Heaney a little bit as well, and I think that Detroit as a contrarian stack and Heaney both make some sense. It's only 68 degrees in Detroit, but you do have 12-mile-an-hour winds blowing out for a stadium that plays a little better for hitting during the day. Pittsburgh, which is that 2.2 total. I don't think I could talk myself into anything from Pittsburgh. I guess in non-Scooble lineups, maybe getting a one-off of like Joey Bart or something like that is not a bad idea, just because he's cheap, batting third and catching. But really, really hard to justify too much there. I do think that Detroit is kind of an interesting stack that is going to be low owned against Heaney. I also think Heaney's interesting, and I'd like to get to a little bit more of him than I have in my most recent builds. In fact, I might bump him up a tiny bit. Just because I think we know what the deal with Heaney, right? Like huge downside, huge upside. Kind of has been middling it out for a little while. Doesn't have isn't going to throw as many pitches, but he can rev up the strikeouts in decent matchups, and it's a good enough matchup where I think we could see that happening today. He will only face, I guess it's 3 lefties in the lineup, so it's a little more than usual. We could see an outlier performance from Heaney today, but just again, we're a little worried about this weather. Would like some more clarification as we get closer to lock. St. Louis and Chicago, we've got Fetty and Burke, and I'm just going to double check the weather here. It's 75 degrees, a little bit of wind blowing out to left. I think people are going to play some St. Louis, and I don't blame anybody. I think that the side that's a little bit sneakier would be to take a low-owned White Sox stack. It's not even that low-owned because of the size of the slate, but I think both sides are viable, and I'll sort of sum it up at the end what my favorites are. I just still in the process of figuring that out exactly. All right, let's move over to Milwaukee and Chicago. And this is an interesting one because I like to stack the Cubs a lot. And especially you've got a little bit of wind blowing out at 75 degrees in Chicago. Nice weather, nice hitting weather. We've got Peralta. I actually think his number should be a little bit higher, even though it is the Cubs. And Peralta and Taillon here. Again, I think this is my favorite to get contrarian stacks. You get really low ownership on both sides. The Cubs are really expensive. And I know Peralta's, he's really good and he can be streaky though. And this is a really good Cubs lineup. Probably with the way things are going, the best lineup on this slate. I guess you'd have to say that because the Yankees have not been the same Yankees as of late. And the Cubs just are, the Yankees, what are they? They ended up going 33 innings without a run. That's kind of amazing. But for what it's worth, Peralta has faced these guys and has actually been really good against this specific group. It hasn't been that like a huge sample, but I'm going to bump him up a little bit. I think these numbers are too low, and I'm actually going to put like a minimum just to make sure I get some of it. I'll probably end up somewhere a little bit above average, average ownership on him. But I do think the stacks are a little bit interesting in this game because I don't think anybody wants to play them. Maybe Milwaukee makes a little bit more sense than going against Peralta. But at the same time, again, this Cubs offense has a huge upside every time that they head out there, especially when the wind is not fighting them. Even with the wind fighting them in like half the games that they have at home, they still are scoring runs like crazy. And they've been one of the best 3 offenses in baseball. All right, we've got Waka and Latz, basically a bullpen game, I guess you'd call it for Texas. Yeah. Sean Armstrong. I don't even know, actually. We haven't announced who the official starter is yet. So we're waiting sort of to see that because I'm seeing different things, different places. We'll get that that in pretty shortly, I'd imagine. I don't love playing Waka in general. I'm going to lower this projection a little bit. I actually think, and he's been better than, I guess than, that I would have played him as, but you're getting no ownership on the Rangers. And I think the Rangers are super interesting for tournaments today. So that's going to be one team that I take some shots with. We don't know who's playing for them yet. We don't have their starting lineup. There's the last one I believe we have to get. But if it comes out the way that Carter, Langford, Seager sounds pretty good to me, and they are cheap. You'll get Asuna in there probably at 2K. You've just got a lot of really cheap bats. So you can see trying to pick on Rodon. I have no problem with that. Again, good hitting weather, so we're going to want some exposure there. So I'm going to just make sure that I have some minimum set for my stacks, and we'll see sort of where we go after we rerun things here in a moment. Obviously, I mentioned the idea of both Milwaukee and Chicago. We'll just do this for now, and I'm going to do this, Milwaukee, Chicago, and we're going to go Texas. We'll go a little higher. I like the idea of getting to some Texas. And Angels, we're going to kind of spread out and sort of see. It's again, remember, you can have multiple stacks in one thing, and these are all going to be less than 5 man. So I don't want to mess with it a crazy amount, but putting little minimums next to the teams that stand out are, I think it makes a little bit of sense. All right. And I also mentioned Detroit as a contrarian. So we're going to rebuild with that. I added the mins and I, again, just to maybe be, because we have so many, we don't have a ton of pitching options, but there is some concerns about the weather in that game. Maybe I can go to 75 max on Skubal just to not have 100% of it. I definitely don't want more than this of Trevor Williams. We'll do that. And then we'll sort of see where it's at and what it thinks for us here. Excuse me. While that's going on, I'll take a quick look into the Discord channel. And morning to Carmen, morning to K9. I hope everybody's doing well. Sheets will be here later with us. All right, so I've got to answer that thing once I get done with this show. Let's see what I think that we're good. I feel a little wishy-washy. Oh, the other thing I forgot to do it. God damn it. Let's take a quick look. I like to do this on slightly smaller slates because there are guys who truly stand out with in a crazy way. I don't understand what the hell this is. There's something wrong with the system if they think that Giancarlo Stanton's more likely to hit a home run than Aaron Judge. So something is up with that. That is just weird. Let's take a look at the stolen base and see if that makes sense. That makes a little bit more sense, but I just want, again, you want to try and take advantage of the guys who have the combination. You see CJ Abrams with the 20 over both. That's a good way of, telling. Also like Zach Neto, another one who's, I believe, 20 over, 17 and 22. Close enough. Bobby Witt, another one. And Pete Crow Armstrong is one that we always play on these small slates, along with Kyle Tucker. Again, not getting crazy with it, just making sure that it's reading me and that I want to make sure I have exposure to these guys. The other one we have would be, let me just double check Milwaukee's side of it, because I do kind of like Milwaukee. We've got basically a lot of stolen base upside for all of Milwaukee. And then when you look at the home run combination, Churio and Yelich both stand out in decent hitting weather game in out there. So we're going to rebuild one more time, and then we're going to see where we're at. Favorite pitchers on FanDuel. I don't play FanDuel on these little morning slates because they don't have any good tournaments. I mean, it's Skubal. I don't think there's even another pitcher you consider. It's just you have to worry about the weather. I really don't think there's a who's the best pitcher conversation today. Like if Skubal's ever pitching, pretty much, it's always Skubal. And you've given like the best matchup in baseball. It's one of the lowest run lines I've seen. 2.2 expected run line for Pittsburgh. It's Skubal by 500 million miles. If they made Skubal double the price on FanDuel, I still think it'd be Skubal. His floor and ceiling are so much higher than everybody else's, and then it's Rodon. It's pretty straightforward. On FanDuel, you don't really want to mess around and try and get cute with your pitcher. You want to try and take somebody you think you can actually win, get there for you. So let me do this. All right. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to write something else in over here. I'm just going to wait for this thing to run. All right, we're going to run the sim and see what we get. I'm curious what types of stacks we get. And again, I'm very okay with anything on a 6-game slate. Again, not all 6-game slates. I feel like I like enough different stacks, you know, St. Louis, Chicago, the White Sox, Washington, Colorado, New York. I think the Angels are sneaky. I like Texas as a sneaky stack. And so there's a lot of different things that I like here. So I'm okay with just getting different exposure to some of my favorite hitting spots. And this is what you get before running the sims. We're going to get all the Scooble, obviously. And God, I hate, this is after running the sim. Did I really just run them and that's what they came up with? All right. Well, and then you're getting all of the St. Louis. Let's look at the stack exposure types. 4-3, 4-4, 4-2 is the majority. I don't mind even some of these, as Sheets calls them, bow wow stacks for this. We're going to save this for right now. I'll update everything and I'll post when Texas releases their lineup, because that will dictate a little bit of what I do. As I do like Texas as a contrarian stack today. And let's just see what we ended up with. So we ended up with a good amount of the Peralta. Like, you just want to play the pitchers with the ceiling on these slates. The only reason I think I'm not getting to more of Rodon, actually it's a decent amount of Rodon, is that God, Trevor Williams. Well, it's Colorado. I guess that's what the answer is. And you've got St. Louis, Colorado, New York, Angels a little. I'm not getting as much. Where's my Texas love? Oh, I got 20%. Okay. Maybe I make that a little bit higher. It gives me some late swappability to those 11, 10 games. But I guess I can always do that with St. Louis a little bit later. So, all right. Well, that's just a quick look on this small slate. We've got the big slate. We've got another small slate later. And then we've got the big NBA Finals Game 6. Hopefully you guys' golf lineups are doing well. I'm off to a pretty good start, so we'll see how it goes. Obviously very, very early. And yeah, we'll get 4 days of it at least, because people are not going to be missing the cut. That's for sure. Anyway, appreciate all your guys' time. Give us a like and take a look at the site when you have a chance. Congrats again to Sheets on his huge hit the other night for the 100K. And hopefully we can, one of us TrueDFS members can pull something like that off today. Good luck, everybody.